I'm so excited to read Chapter 6, The Power of the Process, with you, and that we've come this far on the course. The power of process. We will stay in our stories until we extract all the lessons and wisdom we need in order to deliver our unique contribution to the world. It's important for us to understand that we created our stories, with all their magnificence and all their despair, in order to learn the particular lessons we need most. Our stories contain all the wisdom we need to become the people we long to be. The lessons for each of us are different. As Deepak Chopra so beautifully says, we've walked through different gardens, we've cried at different funerals, and we've knelt at different graves. Each of us has had different triumphs and failures, and has different lessons to learn. But divine guidance has been instrumental in every experience of our lives, showing us ever more clearly who we are and giving us exactly what we need to fulfill our unique purpose. Our life stories have equipped each of us with a particular set of skills and a unique blend of wisdom that we are meant to deliver to the world. To live outside our stories, we must courageously walk through our drama-ridden lives and begin the process of embracing and loving all that we are and all that we are not. We must take the time to examine each and every chapter of our lives, exposing the places where we are still stuck, hurt, or incomplete. We must commit to letting go of our resentments and to stop blaming others for the condition of our lives. We must be willing to take responsibility for our current circumstances and to let go of all the baggage we are still carrying around from our past. We must commit to traveling the path through our personal dramas and to finally make peace with our stories. This is how you do it. Stop chasing the feel-good moments. Millions of people have spent billions of dollars trying to gain deeper levels of inner peace, to no avail. Others have been able to make some progress in feeling better about their lives, cleaning up their thoughts, their closets, and their relationships. Still others continue to search, trying desperately to find the right answer, the one that will free them from their suffering. But there is no way out. By avoiding our pain, we perpetuate our ongoing dramas and drag our past around with us every day. It is almost impossible to appreciate where we are or what we are doing when the past is right under the surface of our consciousness, stalking our every move, reminding us of our failures and our traumas. To begin the process of making peace with our stories, we must make a commitment to letting go of all the behaviors we use to anesthetize our pain. If we look closely at those behaviors and are willing to tell the truth, we will probably see that most of the ways we numb ourselves don't work very well anyway. In order for us to heal, we must stop chasing what I call the feel-good moments. The following process offers you a way out of the never-ending cycle of discontent. It's not the easy road. I don't believe there is an easy road. But I promise you that the direct road to lasting peace and contentment is much easier to travel when the winding road of continually searching, trying, than the winding road of continually searching, trying, and failing. Living a life where we feel that deep at our core there is something wrong with us, that we're not good enough, or that we don't matter, is a hell that is difficult to endure. So is living a life in which our dreams are always one step ahead of us. The hopelessness, the discontent, and the seemingly endless pit of emotional pain kills our spirits and separates us from our most extraordinary selves. Nothing is worse for the human spirit. Nothing can take away our life force more than the belief that we are deficient or flawed, or that at some fundamental level, we are unfixable. Embracing it all. The process of making peace with our stories requires us to identify, understand, accept, and embrace everything in our past that has caused us pain. The process is the same whether we are trying to heal a painful incident, integrate a shadow belief, or come to terms with an unwanted aspect of ourselves. Whether we suffer from depression, ill health, discontent, a sense of unworthiness, arrogance, or low self-esteem, the road to healing is the same. We process growing up with an angry mother in the same way we process being sexually abused by a cousin. We process the disappointment of losing a job in the same way we process anger at the person who breaks our heart. One might be more painful, one might leave deeper scars, but the path to healing remains the same. Because once they are understood and processed, will take us deep inside and return us to our divine essence, finding the gift inside the pain. The issues that remain just beneath the surface of our consciousness are the lumps in our batter. These unhealed wounds are what prevent us from stepping outside the limitations of who we think we are. They are also the glue that holds our story in place. These lumps might seem inconsequential, but often they are linked to much deeper issues. For example, when Debbie was in her early 20s, she really wanted to be athletic. She admired people who played tennis, went skiing, and participated in other sporting events. Many of her friends and family members were great athletes, but she had the shadow belief that she was too skinny and weak to participate. Then she became interested in a man named Kevin, a professional tennis player. While they were talking one day, Kevin asked her why she didn't play tennis like her brother and sister. Immediately, Debbie launched into her story about how she was never encouraged to play tennis because she didn't have the right kind of body. She was told she wasn't strong enough or coordinated enough and that it would be more difficult for her because she was left-handed. With a quizzical look on his face, Kevin asked her how old she was when she was told these things. She tried to remember when she first heard those words. She saw an image of herself as a 10-year-old girl who felt awkward in her body. She could still feel the familiar sense of inadequacy and the shame of not fitting in. Fighting back the tears of this emotional wound she shared with Kevin all the time she sat on the sidelines believing there was something physically wrong with her. Those painful memories had haunted her for years, keeping her from ever trying new sports or even playing volleyball at the beach. Kevin listened attentively and then, with a flirtatious gleam in his eye, said, "It doesn't look like there's anything wrong with you now. Why don't we go out and hit some balls?" Her first impulse was to say no, but after a few days of encouragement, she went out with him and hit her first tennis ball. To her great surprise, it came naturally. She committed to taking tennis lessons and had been playing tennis ever since. By confronting the lump in her batter, this emotional wound that told her she was uncoordinated and defective, she broke through the limitations of that story. That one incident triggered 1,000 other memories of times when she felt too thin and fragile. It allowed her to view all the times when she wished she had been shorter, fatter, stronger. Confronting this unhealed emotional wound unraveled all the pain she experienced as a young woman who felt like a skinny little beanpole. She even cried through the pain of what she considered the most humiliating experience of her life. She was at her seventh grade dance wearing a burgundy velvet dress that her Aunt Laura had made her when Todd Halpern, a popular boy at her school, picked her up and put her on the stage as the band's vocalist sang out, "Who's that girl with the skinny legs?" She was overwhelmed with shame and never wanted to set foot in that school again. Her skinniness was her deepest horror. She even tried to hide it by wearing 2 pairs of shorts or 2 pairs of pants. She spent hours in front of the mirror trying unsuccessfully to make her body look different. The truth be told, all throughout her adolescence, she thought of herself as olive oil with big hair. And yes, she did wear her hair big for many years, thinking it would trick others into believing she was bigger than she was. For years, she tortured herself, believing that if only she had a different body, she would fit in and be okay. But now, as she processed that lump, she discovered that all of her pain did indeed come bearing gifts, because she had to be creative and finding creative clothing styles that would suit her small frame. She learned all about fashion, style, and color. From the time she was 13, she was working in women's retail stores, selling clothing and helping women create styles that brought out the best in their bodies. She was great at what she did because she was sensitive to how painful it is to have a body that doesn't live up to one's wishes. The unfolding of all her emotional traumas allowed her to develop a new relationship with her body. Instead of resenting it for being thin and weak, she was able to embrace the grace and agility of her long, lean bones. This ingredient in her recipe has continued to serve her throughout her adult life. It served her when she worked as a media trainer and as an image consultant, even when she in her coaching programs where she trained people to lead seminars and to be in front of people. And one of the gifts she brought is supporting people in returning to their natural style so that their looks don't get in the way of their message. We create a story around every incident in our lives. These stories set our internal boundaries, which dictate what we can and cannot do. We need to take note that each of these little dramas, each lump in our batter, weaves its way into the bigger stories of our lives. Debbie would never have guessed that her feelings of inadequacy around playing sports were just the tip of an iceberg, and that they would lead her to discover and heal a deeper issue about her body. Embracing the pain of her past allowed her to transcend the limitations of her story and gave her access to more joy in her life. Where are your lumps? Our emotional wounds prevent us from taking the leap outside our stories because the pain acts like an invisible fence that straps us inside. We have thousands of different experiences in our lifetimes, but only certain ones remain in our consciousness, replaying themselves over and over again. These are the lumps in our batter that are sometimes visible, other times hidden. Either way, we need to search them out and integrate them. Take a moment right now and close your eyes. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, what incident or event from my past is still causing me pain, anger, or regret? Just breathing into that inquiry. What incident or event from my past is still causing me pain, anger, or regret? Something will arise. And when it does, you'll have just uncovered one of the lumps in your pattern. It may have happened 2 days ago or 22 years ago. It doesn't matter. If you want to be free to use your story instead of your story using you, you need to integrate all aspects of your drama. The lumps in our batter are nothing more than the unprocessed events of our past. Once we uncover and accept what each lump consists of, we can begin to integrate all the ingredients in our recipe. Integration spontaneously occurs when we discover the gifts of our past. Hidden inside the darkness of our most painful times are the lessons we need to learn. Integration requires us to view our lives as teaching tools and to honor all that has happened to us. Once we can see our past and everything in it as our teacher and our guide, we will know what we have deeply that we will know that we have deeply integrated all the ingredients in our recipe. We will no longer waste our time wondering why certain things have happened to us, and we will no longer resist our stories. Integration equals freedom. Integration equals freedom. We will finally be able to stop, stop trying to fix, change, or make better the story of us. Instead, we will have taken an important step on the journey outside our story. Processing your lumps. When Allie was 8 years old and in the second grade, her mother dropped her off at school one day. Before heading off, Allie's mom gave her a big hug and told her she would be back at 2 o'clock to pick her up. After school, Allie walked to where all the moms and dads drove up to pick up their kids. Allie quickly found a spot for herself and stood there anxiously, ready to go home after her long day at school. Allie watched one car after another drive up, filled up with kids, and drive away. 20 minutes later, all her friends had disappeared and she was left standing all alone. Not knowing what to do, She kept looking around up and down the street for her mother, but her mother never came. By the time the parking lot had emptied completely, Allie was feeling lost and desperately afraid. Certain that her mother had forgotten her and not knowing what else to do, she began to walk home alone. Feeling embarrassed and ashamed that she had been forgotten, Alice slouched her shoulders and let her head droop low in hopes that no one else knew and that no one would recognize her. That day, in the second grade, Allie made some decisions that would affect her for the rest of her life. She decided that there must be something wrong with her, and that was why she had been left behind. This became Allie's story. Allie made her mother's absence mean she didn't belong, and therefore she wouldn't be loved. After all, she reasoned, if she were okay, and if she belonged, her mother never would have forgotten her that day. She also decided then and there that she couldn't depend on people. Sitting with Debbie 20 years after this incident, Allie could still feel the pain tearing at her heart. They had just uncovered an unprocessed lump in Allie's batter, one that was still driving her to that day, limiting the amount of intimacy she experienced in her personal relationships and the level of responsibility she allowed herself to accept at work. Allie desperately wanted to learn the lessons of this painful incident, to find its gifts, and to move on with her life. So Debbie asked Allie to make a list of all her current behaviors that resulted from the conclusions she had drawn that day, that she was unimportant and a bad girl. Debbie asked her to write about all the ways those conclusions had negatively affected her life. Allie's list sounded like this. I will always have to go out of my way to be extra nice to people and do whatever I can to make them happy. I always follow the crowd so I won't be left out. I compromise my own needs for the needs of others. I can't speak up and say what I think or feel because then I might get left behind. I have to give all my power away to others. Debbie then asked Allie if she could see that she was still making her mother wrong for forgetting her that day. Although Allie had a great relationship with her mother, Allie could see that she still held some resentment from that incident. She could see that she unconsciously made her mother wrong each time she found herself acting out one of the behaviors she listed. Allie had done years of therapy and other work on herself and was stunned to discover that she was still making her mother wrong. Debbie then asked Allie what she was getting out of holding on to this incident. Allie slowly replied, I get to be right in my belief that you can't really count on anyone and that people aren't there when you really need them. The next step was for Allie to think about and write down all the times that she co-created similar scenarios in her life. After all, she found some comfort in affirming her story's truth. Allie found that in more than 5 other relationships, she was able to prove to herself that she was unimportant and that people wouldn't be there for her. It was a familiar story, and she knew it all too well. Allie had replayed the storyline countless times in her life, not only in her major relationships, but in little ways like allowing herself to be passed over for a promotion or letting people cut in front of her in line at the drugstore. Each time she was ignored or left behind, Allie not only had the satisfaction of being right about being unimportant, but she also got to make her mother wrong all over again for leaving her that day. 20 years later, after losing a job and experiencing yet another failed relationship, Allie was ready to integrate this incident with all its pain and having to process the undigested batter of anger and resentment and blame. I'm sorry, I had to add that in. Debbie asked Allie to close her eyes, look inside, and ask herself what she needed to do to heal from the effects of this incident. Allie said that she wanted her mom to write her a letter telling her how sorry she was and acknowledging the pain that her actions had caused her. Allie knew that her mother might not want to do this, but she felt she needed to ask her. She told her that if her mom was opposed to the idea, she could just as easily write a letter to herself from the perspective of her mom. This is Debbie telling Allie that if your mom doesn't want to do it and write it for you, then you can write it. Allie called her mother, and even though her mom could hardly remember this incident, she was more than willing to write the letter, knowing that it would support Allie's healing. This is what Allie's mother wrote. I can't read this without crying. Dearest Allie, this is a letter of an apology for the incident you shared with me when we last spoke. How hurt you were as a little girl when I promised to pick you up from school, and I didn't show up for you. I'm so sorry that you had to have this experience. I wish I could have. I wish I could change the past, but I can't. I can't imagine all the fear and abandonment that you must have felt and how scared you must have been. When you shared with me, I could hear in your voice all the pain and suffering that you experienced. I would like to tell you how sorry I am for that experience. You mean the world to me. I never meant to hurt you in any way. I'm glad that you shared this incident with me so that this experience can be healed. I hope this letter can heal some of the hurt and help you to find closure. If I can do anything else to help you in this process, please let me know. I love you and I take total responsibility. Please forgive me. Love you, Mom. Allie read these words and wept with a mixture of sadness and joy. The sadness of a little girl lost and alone, and the joy of a grown woman healing from the pain of her past. After Allie had spent a few days with the letter from her mom, she was ready to take the next step of extracting the wisdom that this trauma held for her. Again, Debbie asked Allie to close her eyes and consider what she had learned as a result of that incident. Allie told her that because of that incident, she had decided she never wanted people to feel unimportant or left out. So she became an accountable, reliable, and trustworthy friend and family member. Looking at Debbie, not with the pout of a hurt child, but the certainty of a grown woman, she said, "If I tell you I'll be there no matter what. Showing up for people is a priority in my life. I am sensitive to people's needs and always try to show up and always try and show them how important they are." Debbie then asked Allie how these gifts have served her in her life. It was easy to see how her warmth and her caring had helped so many people and how it drove her to want to help teach and care for children. Her commitment to people is one of the things she loves most about herself. Standing in the presence of these gifts, Allie could appreciate the wisdom and the value she had gained from the trauma that had haunted her for so long. Debbie explained to Allie that her feelings of being unimportant and left behind and would most likely continue to arise because they had been with her a long time. The question was not how she could get rid of those feelings, but how she could be kind and compassionate to herself even when she was feeling them. Debbie reassured Allie that if she could love and accept herself, even when she was feeling unimportant or left behind, she would be able to use the pain as part of her recipe. They both agreed that the qualities born from the pain would be vital to her in her future. This is the integration process, step by step. There is a distinct process that Debbie used with Allie to help her make the transformation from a victimized little girl to an empowered woman aware of her unique gifts. This process works no matter what the specific details of a person's story may be. And so this is the process. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pause here, and will come back to the integration process step by step for chapter 6, so you can digest this and come back when you're ready to drop in.